Welcome, everyone, again to another Leadership Live broadcast. If you're in Toronto today, you'll see that it's a beautiful spring day outside. And finally, we're out of the snow season, at least for now, for the time being. But thank you so much for joining me today. Today's a Thursday broadcast because tomorrow is I'm taking a day off. But we're having a wonderful guest today. She's going back to kind of a little bit of my roots in customer experience. It's kind of what I ended off my corporate career previous to being a executive coach in. And so I'm very excited to hear about her career journey. And if you're tuning in for the first time, just love for you to drop in the comment box section below where you're from. If you're watching post-broadcast, no problem at all. Feel free to reach out to our guest today once I introduce her, or reach out to me if you have any questions. Would love to hear from you. And just a quick reminder again, the intention behind this particular program is to tell career stories. And what I found, of course, you hear me say this every week, it's because I want to be able to differentiate for you guys what it is that you're listening to, right? Is that there is sort of a lack of knowledge and understanding about how people have traveled throughout their careers to get to where they are today. And I found that in time of COVID, that a lot of my clients were having difficulty kind of realizing that they're not the only ones who are going through some of the ups and downs of career. So, all right. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today. And today our guest is Erin Gray. And she's the SVP, Senior Vice President of Customer Experience at Endy. So if you know anything about Endy, they're a pretty cool company, and she'll talk about that in a second, I'm sure. Erin Gray kicked off her career in customer experience quite accidentally. Upon graduating with a degree in communications and a goal to work in PR, Erin took a role as a banking service representative until she found a career that truly excited her. Over the next 25 years, Erin has navigated her career in customer experience throughout a variety of different industries, ultimately leading into her current role at Endy. Tenacity, passion, resilience, and the ability to always find an opportunity to have fun have been the leading qualities in her career journey. So I'm excited today to invite Erin to the forefront. Erin, thank you for coming. Happy to see you.
Hi, Simeon. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And you are in Toronto, of course, as well. Is that correct?
I am. It's a gorgeous day here. I heard you say earlier the snow's gone, and I was like, oh no, he's going to jinx it. So it's gone today.
We've had
I'm
snow.
sure.
We've had snow coming on and off for the past couple of weeks. It's been absolutely crazy in terms of kind of expectations. But thank you so much. We got some pretty good. Oh, we've got Matteo joining in from Switzerland. Good to see you, Matteo. Awesome. Thanks you could join us today. Let's see. We've got Niagara Falls, Ontario. Mary Dix here. Good to see you. We've got Jeff Daw dialed in from Vancouver, Canada. I guess some of these people might be your fans. But thank you guys for joining us. Okay. So Erin, let's dive into about you. So thank you, first of all, for coming on again. I first came across the company Endy through, I think, kind of very atraditional channels. It was either on a website or something, or some sort of subway. I don't remember what it was, but I remember thinking that it's a really fascinating concept. And while this show is not about kind of the technical aspect of your role, it is more about how you've gotten to where you are today.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you do today and kind of what your company is about.
Yeah. So I have the pleasure of leading the customer experience team here at Endy Sleep. We don't just refer to it as Endy Sleep anymore, because we have ventured into far surpassed just mattresses. But Endy did kick off about 7 years ago. We just had our 7th year anniversary, where they were selling direct-to-consumer mattresses, online mattresses, which was a novel idea. You would think, no way would anyone buy a mattress without being able to touch it, bounce on it, roll around on it out of showroom. But indeed, people do, because it was an ingenious method of being able to compress and wrap a mattress, send it out to a customer, and then watch it just bloom into the beautiful mattress that it is when you take it out of the packaging. So since then, Endy has ventured into other home furnishings, sofas, rugs, of course, obviously pillows and accessories for your bed. So yes, only going up from here. We have won. We're just talking this morning about the awards we won of being, one of Canada's top employers,
Yep.
most admired cultures. So it's been a pleasure to join
Mhm.
Endy at such an exciting time,
Right.
and watching it just grow from here.
Great. That's great. And where did you come from before that? From before Endy?
Just before Endy, I was
Yeah.
working for a company called S&P Data,
Okay.
and they support other organizations with call center solutions and marketing solutions, sales and marketing. So
Hmm.
we worked with some very big brands throughout North America and supporting them. So it was more of a client success role, which is a bit different. You're supporting businesses as opposed to consumers.
The end
So
customer. Gotcha.
yeah, so I was the vice president of customer success there.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
And in your mind, sort of what's the transition been like as far as different industries, and different audiences and different client backgrounds?
It's been it's been great. I mean, I've missed the consumer part of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's always a difference, between client success and customer
Right.
service.
Right.
And
Sure.
to be really good at it, you need to know what's the motivation of your customer. Um,
Hmm.
a consumer is more complex. A business, so a client base where you have a B2B type environment relationship, it's a little easier.
Right.
What they want is they want to make money. You want your counterparts there to look good in front of their boss. They want to look good in front of their customers, and your job is to help them do that.
Right.
In
Right.
a B2C, it's a little more complex. The motivation of your customer can be unknown. You can do customer journey mapping, but it varies.
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
motivates them could be slightly different. So it's a more complex business compared to B2C. But I've
Right.
missed it. I've missed the compared to B2B, but I have missed the B2C, and I'm back. I'm glad to be back in it.
Yeah, and I think part of it is B2C is really the frontline piece, right? If
Mhm.
you understand kind of where the product hits the market, right? It's really interesting. And yeah. Anyway, enough about me. And so the industry itself for Endy, the furnishings and all that stuff, like, how is that market right now looking in Canada as far as you're looking expanding into different furnishings, etc.
Mhm.
What's the time like right now for that?
Well, right now it's a bit of a challenge because no
Hmm.
one in retail knows what it's like working in a post-pandemic world. No one's ever gone through it,
Right.
and no one knew what it was like to work within a
Hmm.
pandemic.
Hmm.
E-com business throughout, regardless of what it was they're selling, they obviously did very well during the pandemic because people couldn't leave their home, and so they resorted to online shopping.
Right. Right.
So, Endy, like many other companies, we were able to see some really big growth surges during that time. But
Gotcha.
now things are opening up. We have a post-pandemic world. We have a war going on in Europe,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so things have changed a lot. And I think the
Yeah.
biggest challenge right now would be, in terms of leadership and
Yeah.
losing talent. When you have a B2C, which means you have a very, a frontline team dealing with the customers at a time when the service world is starting to, come out of hibernation,
Right. Right.
there's going to be a big competition
Yeah.
on those service personnel. So it's that's when leadership really is really important, and
Yeah.
making sure that you're leading a team through a time when they could walk. And
Hmm.
so that's probably at this point. Um, I can speak for Endy. I can speak for a lot
Hmm.
of other retailers, whether they're e-com or in store. That the demand on talent right now is going to be pretty fierce.
Right. So you yourself, as a customer experience expert,
Mhm.
SVP, what do you do on a day-to-day level? What kind of leadership do you provide for the company?
I'm very hands-on. And again, because I joined Endy in December. So right now I meet with the entire team every morning, and
Right.
then if we have an afternoon team because we're open until 10 o'clock, I meet with them every afternoon.
Hmm.
And yesterday we actually had a very spirited debate on a return policy, and we talked
Okay.
about it and talked about what was the right thing to do, and it
Right.
was so really getting insights. I have made a point of meeting with each individual member of my team.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and spent, some good quality one-on-one time with them. It was obviously virtual. But as we're starting to open up, I, encourage people to come meet me in the office if they're comfortable with it. And, definitely trying to book lunch dates and getting to really know the staff,
Right.
the team, and really understand, what obstacles they're facing, what hurdles they have to deliver the elevated customer experience that I want to make sure we're delivering.
Right. Gotcha. And as far as sort of the challenges go, when you sort of think about kind of your career progression and kind of all the skills and capabilities that you've learned over the years and applying that now to this particular industry, what skills or capabilities do you feel have been the most important for you to transfer over into this kind of leadership?
I was actually having a conversation this morning with a former colleague of mine on that, because we were talking about, what do you look for in talent and what do you want to, ensure, and making sure you have a team that's comfortable making financial decisions on the fly, on the phone with a customer. If you have a team that's afraid to make a financial decision on the phone with a customer, whether it be a credit or a refund, or sending a new product to them, then you're going to be interrupting that flow of elevated customer experience. You can't deliver epic customer experience if you have these contradictions. You say to your team, I want you to use your best judgment, but then you have this ridiculously long list of process protocols, and it's like, okay, do you want me to follow the rules, or do you want me to use my best judgment? What do you want me to do here?
Yeah.
So it's finding out what are those obstacles and rules, and breaking them down and finding out, what is this really protecting the company, or is it hindering it because it's being taken too literal by the frontline team?
Gotcha. Well, that's great. It's really good to understand a little bit more about the business behind the scenes, because what we do see is probably still sort of the Endy Sleep kind of approach, right? To understand more of the furnishing, it would be exciting. Just going to kind of play off here. So we got another person from Vancouver, Stas. Good to see you there. And we have someone from Costa Rica.
Oh,
wow. So I don't know if you know any of these LinkedIn users.
I don't know anyone.
That's good. Maybe they're using Endy products, which is
maybe.
just always nice. All right, let me switch over a little bit to your personal career story then. So in your introduction, you talked about how kind of stumbled upon this kind of career.
Yeah.
In your earliest memory, what kind of profession did you want to get into, right? Before any of this happened, what did you want to do in your?
Yeah, I majored in communications, and I wanted a job in PR because I thought it was cool and sexy and it'd be fun. I'm going to meet famous people. So yeah, and I thought it suited my personality. I'm very extroverted. So, but it was the 90s and it was tough to find a job. So I took a job at a customer service representative on the phones. And I thought, well, I'll just do this for now until I find a real job. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with, working with customers. And it was also a really important time because it was probably at that stage when customer service was maturing into customer experience, where smart companies were appreciating the importance of and how customer experience could be a real differentiator. And the financial institution I worked at the time started this Make It Right campaign. And it encouraged, again, the frontline staff to give them the autonomy to make decisions where they wanted to make it right for a customer. And so that, for me, that's where I really got, the bug. And I, knew at that point I wanted to work in customer experience. Not necessarily had to be in banking, but I wanted any industry I worked in, I wanted it to have a connection back to the customer.
Did you know what customer experience actually meant before you started doing that? Because I know a lot of people are just they make the assumption that you walk into a store and if the sales associate is good, then it's great. If it's not, then the whole store sucks, right? Did you know anything about what that meant?
Back then, no, I probably didn't. I mean, I was working in customer experience up to that. When I was in university and in high school, I had jobs where I worked at, clothing stores. I worked as a waitress in a bar. So I've been delivering customer experience, but I didn't know I was doing it. I just was, always wanted to make the customer feel like a guest. and that's just, I guess that's just my nature.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so when I did fall into customer experience, it felt very comfortable,
Right.
and very, I felt very confident in the industry.
When you started out, what pitfalls did you see immediately to say, you know what, this is going to be the problem of the future that I need to solve, right? Because when you're, especially when you're, I used to work at Rogers Communications, and one of my projects there was to optimize the call center. And when I was doing some shadowing, I think one of the frustration was that people actually wanted to help. They actually wanted to do more for the customer.
Mhm.
They identified the problem, but they couldn't actually do anything about it because maybe they just didn't have the seniority for it. Did you see
Yeah.
anything up front there that was going to be like, you know what, and you predicted the future, and lo and behold, here's what the problem is?
Yeah, and I think I knew then, like, if I was running this place, I would,
Right.
I would take down that rule. I would, allow a customer to process that claim, without a receipt, because it's unreasonable to expect them to keep a receipt from 5 years ago.
Right.
So, and I think that's where customer advocacy really stuck with me, and I
Mhm.
was sort of seen as that, that customer advocate. I was, what someone at work used to call me, such a Norma Ray when it comes to the customers. I was
Right.
always,
Right.
going to fighting for them, and going to, we'd have arbitration sessions. At one point I worked in claims, and going and trying to sway my
Mhm.
leaders at the time to pay a claim, because I felt it was just the right thing to do. So that customer advocacy was something that really excited me. And
Mhm. Mhm.
um, it's just that your nature to feel like you're doing the right thing for a customer. And so
Right.
that's something I knew at that point was really important, when leading a team, is to instill that sense of advocacy.
Right. Did you work in a retail store
Yeah, when I was before my
before
career
that?
started, yeah, I did. I worked in Smart Set.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I knew about the service rep role, but I didn't know if that meant that you had spent time in period of time, like a lot, extended period of time in a store.
Yeah.
And I guess if anyone spent time in a store,
Mhm.
you know there's nothing more than customer advocacy that would it
Mm.
it really changes that whole experience very quickly, right? If they
Yeah.
know that you're trying to fight the battle with them to kind of get
Mhm.
the right product or get the right thing done. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you went from there and you said, what was the next step that you took to say, okay, I'm going to now look for a specific role that has these specific kind of criteria? What is it? So some people would have said, okay, I sent out a resume, said, here's my qualification, and I just got sucked into my career, right?
Mm.
Did you have a strategy as far as kind of figuring out what you wanted to do next?
Yeah, I knew I wanted growth. I had, moved my way up into, junior management when I was at my first company. But it was a very, very large, it was the largest bank in Canada. And I wasn't getting a lot of exposure to
Mm.
some really good leaders. And I wanted that. So I applied for a job at a smaller financial institution,
Yeah.
and I got it. And it was downtown Toronto, which was
Hmm.
also kind of cool, having to work downtown. And it was great because I was surrounded by, like at my first company, the actuary team was on a separate floor. I never saw them. I had nothing to do with them.
Right.
But in
Right.
this thing, the actuary was a woman who sat 4 desks away from me.
Right.
Um, you
Right.
know, Not just, 10 desks away was our CEO.
Mhm.
And he would often walk over and talk to me. So I was being really exposed to some outstanding leadership, and
Mhm.
it was fantastic learning
Right.
experience for me. The job I was doing wasn't more complex
Right.
compared
Right.
to what I was doing before, but it was having the opportunity to really absorb and watch some pretty great talent,
Yeah.
and recognizing, oh, that's who I want to be one day, or oh, I don't want to do that one day either. You learn as much from them
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, I think that was probably where I really wanted to start
Right. Gotcha.
branching out.
And I think at part of that is just feeling valued too, right? Like a
Mhm.
lot of stuff that you had to offer when you're in a large corporation, it's often kind of hard for them to kind of identify value talents and give you an opportunity to express that.
Mhm.
And smaller companies, in my experience at least, there are a lot of clients are saying that, they've had many, many years in a large corporation, but when they come to a smaller company, it's almost like they just graduated. Like it's almost like they're coming out of school. It's a new job for them. It's a new kind of trajectory for
Yeah.
them. A lot of it has to do with, I didn't know that I had these skills, and I'm actually being asked to do that. And the best example for that was I had a director who was going to VP role in a smaller company. And the first task that he had to do was to put together an Excel chart with macros built in. And he hadn't touched Excel in years, but a lot of that kind of aspect comes through. You talked about leadership, and that's a really big topic on the show often, very often, because leadership is tied with culture, and culture is tied with satisfaction, all that. What would you say defines a good leader? What are the 2 or 3 attributes that really, really make a difference for you?
For me, I've always found, the leaders I've always tried to emulate were able to have a really exceptional balance of confidence and humbleness, which is not easy to do, right?
Yeah.
If you're very confident, you can come across as very arrogant,
Right.
and if you're way too humble, then you can come across as having low self-esteem. So it's having that ability to be confident and humble, and some really, which sounds so simple, but there's leaders I've met who are incapable of uttering the words "I don't know" or
Right.
"I'm sorry." And having the ability to do that just shows 2 of those attributes and shows the balance of them perfectly. I've sat in rooms where a leader was asked a question, and I could tell that the leader didn't know the answer, but they would go on and on and on, and just confused everybody instead of just saying, "I don't know." And then I've had times where I know an apology was due either to me or to someone else, and it just couldn't be delivered. So I think for me that has been something that is very admirable, and not easy to do sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And is that something that you feel that you're aspiring to kind of become more like? And
Yeah.
what's the difficulty? You said earlier on it's difficult to have that balance. Why do you think that's difficult to do? Because
Well,
a
I
lot
think
of people, yeah, go ahead.
well, I think when you're trying to move up the ladder, you need that confidence. You need
Right.
to,
Sure.
that sense of self-congratulatory to kind of get you motivated and get you going, because it can be a grind. And so you have to have that confidence to know I can do that. I can apply for that job. Even if I don't have the education credentials, I don't meet all of the criteria, I'm going to go for it. And so you have to have that bit of confidence, and I wouldn't say arrogance, but that gumption to say I can do this. So you have to have it to get to where you want to be, and then you get there, and then now you're expected to be humble. So it can be a check, because then you forget how to be humble because you've been building yourself up.
Yeah.
And so usually what happens is you surround yourself by people who kind of keep you in check, right? You
Right.
surround yourself with mentors who will let you know you got this, you can do this, and that'll let mentors who'll be like, who do you think you are right now? So is to surround yourself with people who are going to be honest with you and tell you like it is, and sometimes that's hard.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed the CEO of Deloitte Canada, and he said something about advocacy versus mentoring, which was very interesting. An advocate is someone who is going to be able to tell you straight out, right? And also clear the way for you to be able to succeed. A mentor is someone kind of walks you through life, kind of figuring out, okay, here's a situation that, and I think what you're talking about is that there's importance to have both in your life. Yeah, the advocate, the person who's going to tell you as it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're the same person. The mentor and the advocate is the same. All right, so let's see here. 1 second. So let me kind of move over a little bit to the area of challenge. And in your career, as you've progressed through the ranks and gotten to where you are today, can you share with us maybe 1 or 2 challenges that you faced, and how did you get through them? And then secondary, I have another second question after that, but if you could help us with that, that'd be great.
Yeah. I would say, if I look early on, because I did move into leadership quite young. I was in my 20s when I first entered into a people leadership role. And because I was young, there was immaturity there. And I was also on a team where I was promoted. The team I was on, I was promoted into being the leader of that team.
Right.
So I was already friends with a lot of the people on the team. So, that in the beginning was probably the biggest struggle, because of the confidence. I was new to it,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I wanted everyone to like me. And that was still
Yeah.
really important to me back then because I was
Yeah.
28 years old. And they did. I was a very popular leader. But I thought it was because, after work, we're all going out together and we're friends, and having the confidence to go, actually, and then when you meet with them and say, actually, I do like you, but that's not why I enjoy having you my leader. You listen to me, you're empathetic, you're compassionate. You bring me to other meetings and you challenge me.
Right.
That's why. And so that probably in the beginning was, that lack of confidence and recognizing your own self-awareness as to
Mhm.
when you're being a leader, and not avoiding uncomfortable situations, which at that age I was avoiding having uncomfortable conversations with people that I was friends with.
Right.
And I remember there's an excellent actual leadership coach named Melissa Law, who I remember she once told me, if you're not having difficult and awkward conversations as a leader, then you're not doing your job.
Right. Right.
And you have to accept the fact that when you're a leader, you are the topic of dinner conversations. And so when I started leaning into that, and having and being trying to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, that's
Mhm.
when I really started to become a better leader. Um,
Right.
and
Gotcha.
so that, I think, was probably the biggest challenge then, was leaning into the discomfort,
Mhm.
as opposed to avoiding it.
Did you so on that top, so confidence
Mhm.
and confidence is one of those things where it's not just in the role itself, right? It's
Mhm.
also outside, kind of as you live day to day, and also kind of stringing together your career, right? Because I've had a lot of people before, like clients, who'll say, "I don't want to reach for that role because I'm not confident that I'm going to get it,"
Mm.
right? And it doesn't make any sense to me because confidence is sort of built up, and the only way you can build up is if you have a foundation, right? And so
Yeah.
how do you get that if you don't apply? When you're stringing through your career, like your different roles, did you have struggles as far as confidence? Like
Oh,
thinking
of
about,
course.
yeah,
Absolutely. There's times when I can remember applying for a role, and I went in for the interview and I bombed it. And that's happened throughout my career. There's been times when I've
mm,
gone and did an interview, or I met with a leader and I walked out going, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. It was terrible. So sure, of course. So I think it's but that's when the humbleness comes in, right? I think
mhm,
those
mhm.
happen. The universe gives you those moments to remind you to be humble. And so I embrace them and learn from them and move on from them and think, okay, what was happening with me where I lost that confidence, or I faltered? And it's usually because I went in too confident, and
Mhm.
I got
Okay.
arrogant and thought, oh, I got this, and I didn't. And so that's when you're brought down to, um, that's where the balance of confidence and humbleness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I told my daughter the other day, who's pretty hard on herself. She's young.
Hmm.
Um, and I said, the world's job is to put you down. That's
Hmm.
what happens, that's default.
Hmm.
So that's well taken care of. And your role is not to put yourself down. Your role is to kind of do your best, and wherever things may go is where it goes. I mean, you are competing against yourself, right? And you can't control. Yeah, so you don't take over the role of what the world is going to do, because that's going to
Hmm.
happen anyway, right?
Yeah.
Is there a leader that you aspire to be like? Someone that you sort of come across, or that you've read about, that, that's got a great combination of humility, confidence,
Mm.
strength and all that?
It's not. I look back to leaders that I've had, and I would say when I was at Walmart, that is where I was exposed to some extraordinary leaders. Um, a couple of which I had the pleasure of being able to be direct reports of. And so while they're not world famous, there's a couple of leaders that I had when I was there that I felt very impressed with them.
Hmm. Hmm.
They emulated that sense of confidence yet humbleness. They were able to apologize and say, I don't know. They were able to recognize when I didn't know I wasn't good at something,
Right.
and had that uncomfortable conversation with me, saying, but I'm going to make you really good at it. Just, I'll take you there. And they do. and speaking about you in other meetings. So being that sponsor or that advocate,
Right.
where I know that if my name came up in a meeting and I wasn't there, they would speak well of me and bring me to meetings and expose me to other people in the organization and people that I needed to be exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happens, that's who I try and be for other people.
Right.
Whether
Right.
they work for me or they used to work for me and I still keep doing it, or they're just peers of mine. I always try and pay that forward because I know how important it was for me in my career to have that.
Right. Gotcha. We have a question here from Mateo, and he's asking, becoming a leader of colleagues that were previously your peers,
Mhm.
did you face situations where they didn't see you as a leader, perhaps of jealousy? That's a great question. So, like
Yeah.
you're here and then you're there.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've had that where I don't know if jealousy was it, but they saw me as their friend, and so they just didn't see me. They saw me as a peer. They just couldn't. They didn't want to. It could be jealousy. It could be just. And I think if they are really your friend, and you have a one-on-one with them. And I can remember one situation with a woman who was my friend, and still is, and meeting with her one-on-one and just saying what you're doing and undermining me is this is what the impact is on me and on our team and on
Right.
you, because this is making you look not so great.
Mhm.
And so I just really like, again, this is where you can't shy away from an uncomfortable conversation because it's going to be very uncomfortable,
Mhm.
and just meet it head on. And I think most people are, when you really paint a picture of empathy for them, they'll be empathetic. I would find most people are like that.
Right.
Mhm.
The whole customer experience journey is very interesting because it doesn't just, again, apply to the client, but it also starts to apply to your immediate kind of peers, right? About
Mhm.
what is it that they're thinking and facing, what's the journey that they take as far as, if you promote someone or if you yourself are promoted, you can see yourself kind of evolving, right? Because
Yeah.
the way that you think about the world now is different, whereas it used to be sort of task oriented. Now it's kind of
Mhm.
like your goals are sort of set to more expectation from what other people are looking to you for, right?
Mhm.
Um, so as you kind of moved up through the ranks, let me go back to the area of challenges. So you talked about confidence, you talked about how to handle that, and that's an attribute of a leader, right? Someone going into a role. What about your personal struggles, like personal things like I know you talked about confidence, but was there ever sort of a decision you had to make around like this role versus that role, and kind of like you had to weigh the pros and cons of it? Like what were those criteria that you needed to do? Or some people have been transitioned out, but you could share about that or not. But
Mhm.
what elements of that can you share with us about your journey?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I actually, it was between Endy and a very large insurance company, and it was several years ago.
Okay.
And I was interviewing with both, and Endy at the time was much, much smaller. And my gut was telling me to go with Endy, and I didn't. I went with what I
Oh,
thought was the safer choice,
okay.
which was a very, very large organization where I would have a massive team that would have been global.
Mm,
And I thought that was going to be a better opportunity for me and that I would be happier there, even though my gut was telling me it wouldn't. My
right,
head was like, well, this is going to be a more practical
right,
decision and a better long-term decision.
right, right.
And it wasn't. I was unhappy there, and although I have worked with some amazing people and
Hmm.
some great friends that I'm still friends with today, and colleagues that I still call on for advice. But yeah, no, I wasn't happy. And I went through several different leaders while I was there. And then, the last one, I was very honest and
Hmm.
was very clear on the strategy that I felt I didn't think it was the right thing to do. And my nature is not one to toe the line. I always, I am, I do feel being transparent, and telling it, being honest is always the better way. And sometimes it is, and sometimes you meet someone who doesn't want that. And I got fired. I mean, you could call. I got laid off. I got packaged out. I mean, I
Hmm.
was,
Hmm.
but yeah, I got canned,
Right.
and that actually did not affect me. Um, I was okay with that. I always knew as I move along in my career and move up, that is something that will likely happen. I remember reading an article that, looked at the top, top CEOs of the world, and they looked at what things they had in common. And one of them was they were all at one point in their career fired.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that didn't affect me. It wasn't performance related. It was one of those things.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
what probably happened was that it didn't humble me. It
Right.
actually boosted my confidence um, a lot, which
Hmm.
was surprised me. And
Hmm.
I kind of went in saying, I'm not even going to look for a job right now. I really want to focus on my home life and my family life.
Right.
Then, but then I was unemployed in a pandemic
Right.
because
Right.
unbeknownst to anyone, like 6 months later, it was March 2020, and everything fell
Yeah.
apart. So
Yeah.
that was probably where I felt, ooh, maybe I walked away a little too arrogant. And it was a struggle, like trying to find a job and
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
out there and
Sure.
reinventing yourself. And yeah, that was absolutely a struggle. But that's where the resilience comes in, which is
Hmm.
another attribute
Hmm.
of being a strong leader.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember I had a mentor, a wonderful woman, and she once said to me, "Your resilience and you don't know it now, but your resilience is what's going to carry you
Hmm.
throughout the
Hmm.
rest of your career." And no one's ever said that to me. In fact, when I asked people, when they would, tell me about my good qualities were, my optimism, my extrovertedness, my public speaking skills. I mean, those were always the things that were spoken to me. But this was the first time someone said, "Your resilience
Hmm.
is off the charts, and
Yeah.
it will come in handy one day." And that's when it was, and that
Yeah.
having to be resilient and get up every day and hit the pavement, not literally, but figuratively on LinkedIn, and sell yourself.
Yeah. No, that resilience is so critical.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right now, it's particularly the case right now because there's so many. So a lot of organizations are quite yet uncertain about what functions they really truly need
Mhm.
still, and then within those functions, what subcategories of skills and capabilities will make them successful, right? So in that sort of moving role, it's kind of like you need to reinvent yourself. You need to find a way to identify what their problem is they're trying to solve, and
Mhm.
then find a way to kind of get their attention, right? To say,
Mhm.
I'm the right person to do that. So yeah, that resilience is really interesting. I had a call this morning with a client of mine, and he we sort of stopped working together about a month ago, and he said, like, I've gotten no calls. I don't know what's going on, and I said, we've only stopped this program, and first of all, you haven't updated your LinkedIn. I'm like, what are you doing? That's why we work
Mhm.
together on this thing. And I just encourage him to say, listen, the world is going to wait. The world works. It's going to work the way that it works. You just have to be, the only constant that you have is what you can do for yourself, right? Because
Mhm.
you can't control anything else. And at the end of the day, you're just like, you're heaved. You're sitting back. You're saying, this was a good day. I tried my best. I did that actually carries you a lot more from a personal development than
Mhm.
even career does, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really good to hear from what you shared there. Um, so I guess what I would ask before we kind of wrap up the topic, I guess top of the hour here, but what's kind of what's one advice that you gave yourself,
Mhm.
when you're looking for a role during the pandemic, besides the fact that be resilient?
Mhm.
You talked about kind of pivoting that a little bit. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, are you saying to kind of tell me what you mean by that? What do you mean by pivoting?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I by up to that point, majority of my career was B2C,
Okay.
and really educating myself and understanding the B2B market, because it's something I wanted anyways. I really wanted to get into the B2B client success, and I really didn't have a lot of experience in it, but there seemed to be a much more an abundance of roles in client success versus customer experience.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so, but client success usually is part of a revenue team or a sales
Hmm.
team,
Hmm.
which would have been I've never worked in that type of environment. I never had to report into a chief revenue officer or a chief sales officer. So that was very unusual. and working, applying for jobs where I would need to be selling was brand new.
Yeah.
And had revenue targets that I was responsible for, as opposed to operating costs is a very different mindset. So that I sense of, if I'm really going to do this and apply for this job, then I have to learn and understand everything there is to know about client success, meet with people in the client success industry, people who have been successful, and asking them, how did you do this? How did you get there?
Right.
So reaching out to either within your network or outside your network, and understanding a new role and a new industry. So it's, if you're really good in customer experience, then a lot of those fundamentals can be carried into client success, but it's not for everyone, because it's a sales job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great to hear, and I think that's a great takeaway for a lot of job seekers and people who are even just thinking about their careers now, which is, you kind of do have to kind of keep your eye open for what's out there, and then secondly, what's interesting you, and then think about sort of a calculated step as far as, should I be trying to better myself in those areas so that I can kind of gear myself there in the next role that I take, right? So that is great. Okay. So I'm going to wrap up here. If you have any questions for Erin, please feel free to drop in the box. I'm just going to, it's going to take 5 more minutes for some rapid fire questions with her. If you have any questions, please drop in the box and I'll ask her for that. So rapid fire question. I know you've watched it.
Yes.
I'm going to ask the same one. So,
okay.
So what is your alter ego profession? If you weren't doing what you were doing right now, what would you be doing?
My alter ego profession?
Yeah.
A dermatologist.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
I am fascinated with skin, and I just felt, I actually have been to some dermatologists and they give a terrible customer experience, the one I've been to. So I'm thinking I could do this so much better. But I mean, you'd have to go back to med school, and it's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be my alter ego, because I'm not a scientific person whatsoever.
Yeah.
But yes, if I was scientifically minded, I would be a dermatologist.
A dermatologist probably looks at something different about your skin than you do. So that's probably why they're not telling you what you want to hear, because they're looking for something different. Okay. What's one word that you love?
Love.
Love? Okay.
I love the word love. I use it a lot. In fact, it was, I can remember a number of years ago, it was part of a drinking game. Every time Erin says the word love, everyone has to take a shot. So it was, and I didn't realize I said it that much. And I was like, why are we playing that game? And then I realized, oh, I love this song. Oh, I love her. I love that dress. Like, I said it a lot. And I didn't realize it until there was a drinking game and people were getting really wasted.
What do you think that reflects about you?
I think it reflects that I like to compliment people. I like to highlight and promote other people. I like letting someone know that they're doing a great job, and that, and I think that word is a lovely word. And so when you say it and you say it to people, then it usually resonates.
Great. That was a rehearsed response, wasn't it?
I mean, no, it was
not. Okay. What's one word that you hate?
See, this is where I was going to say hate, but then it's a little too obvious. Yeah. I hate the word meta. It's overused, and it's so meta this and meta that. I find it's, whenever there's those, word du jours and they're getting overused right now, I think meta is getting overused.
And you're like, what are you talking about anyway?
Yeah. Gotcha. Just say big.
What is, well, it's hard when there's like the largest company arguably in the world that's changing.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they can have it.
Just the context there. But what is one book title or film title that would best describe your career?
Oh,
or yourself. That's fine.
A Pursuit of Happiness, I think, would be the best one. It's one thing I said this, when we talked earlier, is I've always try and find an excuse to have fun, to have a laugh. And if you're not laughing at your job, then you need to find a new job. And so that's something that's always carried me through. And I always try and make sure that everyone who works with me and around me, I try and help them find opportunities to laugh with me.
Right. We have a question here from a LinkedIn user here. What was or is the most challenging part of maintaining, improving quality satisfaction throughout COVID times? I guess that's probably a personal question for you.
Yeah, I would say it's the same challenge regardless if it's COVID or not. Would be, and I talked about it before, is having ensuring that you have a team of frontline people that are comfortable making decisions for the customer and knowing that they have the autonomy to make it right. And I remember having a team of frontline people when I took over customer experience at the head office of Walmart and saying to them, I want you to pretend that you have $1,000 limit to make a customer $1,000. And they're, absolutely, you can't give me $1,000. I said, yep, I want you to pretend that there's $1,000 in your desk and you can do whatever you want with it, make a customer happy. And no one ever spent anywhere close to $1,000. I think the most someone spent was $200, and it was for an iPod or something.
So this was actual money?
Well, I didn't actually give them $1,000, but I told them figuratively,
all right,
$1,000 limit,
right.
And pretend you have $1,000 in your desk right now that you can do whatever you like with it to make a customer happy. And you won't ever get in trouble for it. I won't question you on it. You got it. You do it. And so that was a fundamental shift for a lot of them, and it worked because they were still cost conscious. No one gave away the farm, and it worked. It made them feel like they have the authority to do that.
Right. Gotcha. And my last question for you is related to COVID. So what's one COVID hobby or habit that you developed?
Walking. So I got a Fitbit when I was on COVID, and I was absolutely disgusted with how little I was walking and moving, especially when you were stuck in the house. So I made a point of walking, and I can sing while walking because I live out in the country, so no one can hear me. I do not sing well, but so yes, I guess singing and walking at the same time and getting the numbers on my Fitbit up.
Oh, that's great. Another way to make sure you walk is to get a dog.
I have bulldogs, and they're
you do? Okay.
Easy, so they don't like to walk long distances.
Gotcha. Yeah, you put a Fitbit on them too as well. Yeah. Erin, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining the show today, and just judging by the customer engagement from the audience, I'm sure that you've really given some really good tips to them as well. So, stay backstage, don't go anywhere, but I'll chat with you after I wrap up here.
Okay, it's been a pleasure to me. Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Wow, that was exciting. So I am very happy now. I think I'm going to be. There was a role that I saw once. It's called Chief Happiness Officer. I don't know if it was at Disney or something like that, but and I thought it was kind of silly. But until I saw the job description, which had to do actually with everything to do with customer experience, client success, and I think Chief Parking Officer, because I think Disney had a problem with parking spots. Anyway, so that was extremely great. I'm really grateful for Erin for joining us today, and hopefully you were inspired by our story as well. And that love is maybe now your new favorite word. But anyway, take care until next time, and we'll see you soon. Bye.